Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
JamesAllen.com is the online destination to easily design a customized engagement ring and save up to 50% compared to traditional stores. You pick a diamond, whether it's lab-created or earth-created, James Allen has over 200,000 conflict-free stones. Then you pick your ring setting and metal. And if you need some help, they have real-time diamond consultations available, where an expert can walk you through it all. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com code podcast. That's JamesAllen.com code podcast.
Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, GoPowerCat.com's Kansas State Athletics Show. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, from the GPC studios, here's your host, GoPowerCat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Questions podcast. We got the whole crew today. Tim Fitzgerald, that's me. Zach Carlson, Cole Carmody, and Ryan Gilbert right here in the GPC studio. We've got lots of questions. We've got hopefully some answers. And we're sponsored by the Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Make sure you stop into the Fridge every time you come to Manhattan. They now have a TikTok account. If you want to just absolutely waste some brain cells, sign up for TikTok and follow the Fridge. I haven't even done that. I need to do that because their social media is pretty good. Nothing like guys that work at the Fridge dancing. That'll be fantastic. I hope we got good questions.
I think they're pretty good.
I'm told they're good, but Cole, I don't trust you. They might all be about baseball, and you think they're great.
We don't want to talk about baseball.
I didn't include any baseball questions.
Yeah, that baseball didn't do so well in the first round of the Big 12 tournament, but I'm looking at it this way. They're attempting to save a little money on the travel budget and to get home soon.
They may play Kansas, most likely. So maybe they'll be able to win that game. By the time you're listening to this, you'll probably know.
The same KU team that has more first and second team picks than
That's pretty
K-State,
crazy, isn't it?
And finished well below the Wildcats.
It's a Fitzgerald coup.
Oh, we just recruit really well. We can't coach worth a damn, but yeah, we recruit really well. Let's get going. You know what? You know I love the Fridge. You love the Fridge. You need to be at the Fridge. I need to be at the Fridge. I got some stuff to pick up at the Fridge. Make sure you stop into the Fridge. And now here are your questions from Cole.
First question comes from Exhausted Nihilist. Name one thing you would like to see Coach Kleiman improve for next season.
He needs to be less careful about how he motions in press conferences so I can make more snarky photos. He's gotten very careful about the chopping around me because I did a whole phase of that. He's, in all seriousness, I want to see if this defense can take the next step. They lost some key pieces, but they've talked a lot about how they're really settling into this defensive scheme and might be able to add some more stuff to it, which I find fascinating because there's hardly any players, Daniel Green, of course, that are left from when they put in the system. But I think the coaches now have a better grasp of what works in the Big 12, what's effective against different schemes, and I think we're going to see that. If the Kansas State defense takes that next step and becomes disruptive more consistently, but also takes away the run game, it's really going to free up the offense for big things. And you go back and look at the games where K-State had issues. You know, Texas, the defense just broke down. They just couldn't handle it. So if you can get that level of consistency on the defensive side of the ball, honestly, like Iowa State, I mean, if you could have an Iowa State-like defense and an offense to go with it, what's remarkable about Iowa State's defense was the offense was not helping. They were putting the defense in bad situations, and they're still responding. So if you can get that kind of attitude on your defensive side to go with an effective offense, you're going to win the Big 12.
Was Iowa State the number one defense last year in the Big 12?
They were up there until the last game.
I think they were top 3, maybe.
They were up there, and then TCU that absolutely destroyed them at the end and skewed all their stats. So, yeah, but they were really good all year long.
My answer to this question, specifically when it comes to Coach Kleiman, I feel like the aggressiveness was taken up a level this year. And I really appreciated that because in today's day and age of football that is so analytic driven, I felt like K-State was kind of behind the curve with that before last season. Like there'd be times where it'd be a 4th and 2 from their own 40 and you're like, the analytics say to go for it and they would punt the ball. But this year it was the exact opposite and they were much more analytically driven. I think to me, I want to see that trend continue. And the thing that really showed me that I think it will was in the game against Alabama. And I'm sure everybody remembers this, but K-State goes for it on 4th down. They don't score a touchdown. They give the ball back to Alabama. Then they call timeouts after they get a stop on 1st down. To me, I absolutely love that move because you're trying to buy yourself another possession. And in a game where you are out-talented, you are out-Jimmy and Joed, you have to find a way to gain those extra possessions to win the game. He's never had to do that at North Dakota State. That was all the talk was how does he manage not having the kind of dudes that he did at North Dakota State, right? Well, to me, whenever K-State has played teams that they should beat, they do beat them. But whenever they play teams, but take out Oklahoma, that maybe it might be kind of tough, they haven't really gotten that job done. That changed last year, and I think a lot of that had to do with analytics. So I'll say continued aggressiveness and continuing the analytical trend and following what the data says because the data wants you to be aggressive, and I think if they can find a way to continue to be aggressive, it's going to help a lot.
I think for me, it's not necessarily an on-the-field thing, but it's the continued increase in the level and stature of recruits that they're getting to commit to the program. I think that, last season with Avery, I think that was a big jump up and a big stepping stone. And I think that, if you can continue that trend of at least, having one marquee top 24/7 type of guy that's a 4-star, I think that, you're going to bring some more guys in and, open some more doors, hopefully. So that's what I want to see is just, at least a recruiting class for the next season that is at least similar in stature to what last year was.
This isn't something that necessarily needs to be improved, but proved to me that you can win without Deuce Vaughn on your team. And I know he did that in year 1, but this was kind of the DNA over the last couple of years. Deuce Vaughn, everything revolved around him. He's not going to be here. Not necessarily something that needs to be improved, but just proved to me that you can win a different way.
Zach, I'm going to touch on your point. I think that as far as the recruiting goes, last year was so unique because of all the top kids in the state of Kansas. And 2025 is shaping up to be that way.
You're right.
There's a kid, Jaden Woods, who got an offer from Alabama, who's the number 1 player in the state. Like, there's a few guys in that class that K-State is going to be in the running for that are top talent level kids. But in this class in particular, it's really hard for them to do that because in their backyard, it's not as high.
Ryan Wallace and I were talking about this.
Yeah.
2025 is the class that's shaping up that could be like 2023. So 2024 might be maybe a little bit of a lull, but I think my point still stands. You have to still recruit and maintain at that level, even if you got to go out of state and maybe a guy that isn't in your backyard.
There can't be that much of a drop off,
right? You can't have a drop off at this point.
I will say though that the offers that some of these kids are getting that commit to K-State are offers that normally the kids that commit to K-State wouldn't commit to K-State with offers they get, right? Like, so that's something to be positive.
Yeah, that's another.
Maybe not like star-wise, it's around the same.
That's another barometer. If a kid is committing to K-State over, I don't want to say Alabama or Georgia, but that's the
Oregon
point.
State.
Oregon State, Oregon.
Nebraska. Yeah.
Nebraska, Iowa State, Iowa, those types of kids, if they're committing to K-State, those are big wins, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Fitz, you mentioned the press conferences with his hands. Mm-hmm. I think he needs to improve his enunciation of the word situation.
I think he nails it. I don't know what you're
I think there needs to be more G's.
Situation?
Yeah.
Just get the second one in their situation. Mm-hmm. I like it. But I don't want him to ever change that. We all kind of silently chuckle at every press conference when he.
You make eye contact with somebody every time you look over and somebody's looking at you.
My favorite part is when he once said a situational situation. That was good. I liked it.
He knows he does it.
I know.
It's amazing.
I think he knows he does it, and he does it anyhow.
Yes. Very good. Next question comes from Exhausted Nihilist, once again, sticking with the theme. Name one thing you would like to see Coach Tang improve for next season.
It's hard to do that after an Elite Eight.
Final Four.
Yeah. Come on, man. What are you doing exiting the tournament so early? Well, I guess probably it's time to start developing your recruits. Mm-hmm. And I know they're still looking for another guard, but they've got a really good trio of perimeter players coming in. And I know he wants experience in the backcourt, but I'd also like to see that balanced with really getting those guys out there and exposing them. I mean, you look down to Baylor, Keontae George. I know you don't really want to have that kind of an experience in the backcourt, and Baylor ran into some issues for that, but the guy's first-round pick.
A lottery pick,
yeah. Which honestly caught me off guard a little bit. But, yeah, I mean.
He's a lot bigger in person than I thought he was on TV.
Exactly. He walked by me in the hallway, and I'm like, you don't look that big on the court, but you're pretty tall. He's a great player.
So developing, I think. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was going to say too. The way to win this year was with transfer portal guys, and now we're going to start transitioning into winning with your high school prospects. And so, getting those recruits developed is obviously big. So, yeah, go ahead, Cole.
I think developing and proving that the guys that you bring in can help you contribute. I mean. I'm not saying that I don't trust this staff to develop, because look what they did with, look what they've done with a guy like Naquan Tomlin, who, we all know his background. But let's see if these guys take the next step. I mean, that it's a natural progression, but until you see someone take the natural progression, there's still going to be question marks. The same thing that happened with a guy like Mike McGurl at K-State, who really, I mean, all due respect to Mike, because I know he put his time in at K-State, and the fans should love him for everything he gave, but he never really got a ton better than when he stepped foot on campus.
Right. He got bigger, stronger.
Yes.
But skill set.
So let's see.
The biggest game of his career was his freshman year, where he was a walk-on, or a redshirt for most of the year against Creighton.
So I'd like to see some easily attainable improvement.
My thing is, you can't live off the transfer portal year after year. It's not a sustainable way to do business. You certainly can use it to supplement and bring something in you need, but the program's going to have to start leveling out this teeter-totter. And really, they need Taj Manning to step up and be a really good player. They say he's going to be a good player. They need to see some of that youth coming in. And I agree with him that you need to be experienced in the backcourt to go deep in the NCAA tournament, but you can't get yourself caught up in the addiction of going out to find the home run on the transfer portal trail all the time, which, they're still waiting to do that this year.
Yeah, I don't think we know what Tang envisions 5 years from now, what a roster will look like. How many guys did you get as a senior? I guess the fifth-year seniors aren't going to be a thing with COVID. That's what we got. Like next year will be the last one. Can't wait for that to be over.
It depends. Yeah,
but I don't think Tang knows himself what he really envisions because of the success that he did have with the portal. I agree, Fitz. You can't live off of that every year. You want to get your guys developed, but I know a lot of Big 12 coaches talk about getting old and staying old. Well, an easy way to always be old is bringing in a guy that has 100 games under his belt that can come in, be a point guard, be a two, whatever, and maybe not be a superstar, but be a nice anchor for your team. So it's, we'll see.
I'd want to see. I know K-State went 11-7 last year in Big 12 play. Yes, it was good enough for third in the conference, but I would like to see some more conference play consistency, because there were times and stretches during the season you're just like, I don't know what we're getting with this team. Mm-hmm. So, obviously the postseason run, even the Big 12 tournament, they lose that first round game. And you're just like, what are they going to do? And then they draw Kentucky. That was probably one of the best games of the year that they played. And, they make the Sweet make the Sweet 16, make the Elite Eight. You know, it was rolling at that point, and that's ultimately what matters. I think when you look at the success of a season, it's about that NCAA tournament. Nobody's going to remember the conference championships or, you know, getting close like that. But I think that having longer stretches of consistent play is going to be key, because I think that if they had, you know, a little bit better January or February, maybe they make the Final Four and they overcome Florida Atlantic. Mm-hmm. So I think that, you know, that goal should be 12 wins, I think, at this point. They won 11 last year. I think 12 would be a good number. But even then,
it's tough right now with the roster.
Right. But
currently.
Sure. I'm with you, Gills. But KU winning 13 games last year to win the regular season conference championship outright, I think that's pretty attainable for K-State to just, you know, find 2 more games to be 13-5 and kind of be up in that conversation.
You go back and you look at some of those games and you shake your head, because there were games where that you can find a way to scratch out 2 more wins. You got a conference championship.
Mm-hmm. I really hope that Tang continues to listen to other people's opinions. You know, he talked about last year, one of the assistants had mentioned how they were working too hard. You know, they were losing. I think they lost 3 out of 4, and it was, you know, Tang mentioned somebody was in his ear and said, "Hey, why are we working so hard right now? You know, we're in the thick of Big 12 play," and they dumbed back the practices. They had fresher legs. They started winning. And so just keeping your ears open, if you're Jerome Tang, he did that really good in year 1. Keep that up, because the way that I'm sure he thought he was going to be a head coach when he initially got hired, I'm sure that's changed a lot to where we are now with having a season under your belt. I think when you get complacent, you stop getting better at things just in general in life. And so he's got to continue to let his entire staff continue to help him. And I think that 100% they will, and he'll listen. But that's not something, again, that he can necessarily improve on, but just keep getting better at that, if that makes sense.
And don't remember the assistant coach that suggested changing the starting lineup.
He's not an assistant coach right now. I'm sure that'll be in the works.
I don't know. He's verified on Twitter. I don't know.
Yeah, he's got enough money to fork out Elon.
Yeah. Yeah, but especially now. Yeah.
I need to get on the settings or something. Every time I tweet, it doesn't send. It waits like 20 seconds.
Oh, that's what.
And it's like, are you sure you want to hit? Are you sure you want to?
That's what everyone? It does. Yeah, that's everyone.
Everybody?
No,
that was just me.
No, on everyone that's verified.
Yeah, I want to. Is there a setting on that? There's got to be a way to turn that off.
Because it's like
really hate it.
It's an edit thing. They want to make sure.
Yeah, I understand why, but a lot of the stuff, especially when there's games going on, it's boom, boom, boom. You want to be live updating on Twitter. You don't want to be 30 seconds late.
Just pretend you're an assassin and double tap that crap. Just right.
Okay.
2 taps.
Okay.
Next question comes from Americat. Has Jerome Tang found the secret sauce to getting an edge in the transfer portal? Being patient?
Not yet.
It worked last year. Let's see. I need more results in 1 year.
I mean, they are being extremely patient again.
I don't think it really worked last year. Like, there's no way they were banking on the Keontae thing working out. It happened, great, but I don't think that was part of the plan since April or May of last year, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
I think you go back and you look at the things that happened last year, like Antoine Davis. If Antoine Davis comes to K-State, Keontae Johnson's not at K-State. So, like, things fell in their lap. And
Nigel Pack stays. I don't know if Keontae wants to come.
Correct. Well, I don't know if they go after. Like, do they even go after Keontae? Like, there's so many things that had to happen last year that did, and the stars aligned, which is great. And I think that's what makes this staff so good, is that they have a plan, but when that plan goes off the rails, they're pretty good at straightening out and making new rails and finding a way to get back on the track. So I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing, but it's kind of one of those things where, like, unless we really, really feel like we want this person, like, we'd rather settle later. Like, I feel like that's kind of how they feel. They would rather settle on something at the very end as opposed to settling in the beginning. If that makes any kind of sense.
I have to go back and look, but like Bebe and David Gasson, like, those were the guys they were getting this time later.
David was earlier. Yeah.
He was? Okay. Well,
he was right around this time. Yeah, because I remember that.
That's like, I'm sorry, but K-State could have went to the Elite Eight without those 2 players, bluntly put. So I get it, because they had success in the portal and it was delayed for a little bit, but I don't want to say, like, I'm not saying they got lucky in the portal. I'm not saying that at all last year, but like Marquise Noel really was the catalyst of this team. and winning his recruitment to stay in Manhattan, that was the biggest thing for Tang, in my opinion, last offseason.
Agreed.
So I'm not optimistic that K-State's going to hit these home runs in the portal. I'm waiting till it happens to be completely satisfied.
I'm more patient this year than I was a year ago.
Sure.
But
he's earned our trust a little bit.
right, I still got to see it. Before I say they've got some secret sauce here, I need a little bit more of the recipe.
There's another side of the coin here that, you may wait and you may have waited too long. But I think that, like we've said, Jerome Tang has bought himself some time with what he did last year. But You're absolutely right about, Keontae being so late that they surely couldn't have banked on him, as long as, for him being what he became, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard multiple times the last couple of months that, something big's cooking here with this guy or that guy, and it's just never really worked out, And that's going to happen. You're going to lose those battles that you're in. But we got to actually see these guys start committing, if that makes sense.
And I also think that there's the other side of the coin that they feel really confident in the guys they have coming back.
There's a lot of sides to this coin.
It's
It's actually a dice.
Yeah, it really is at this point. It really is.
It's called a die. Anyway.
Are we ready for the next question?
I am. I'm so ready. I'm ready-ish.
Okay.
Okay.
The last question of the first half comes from Bush and the Hog. Assuming that K-State has another successful year in football, what coaches could we expect to take other jobs, and do you think there is a sort of succession plan in place for certain roles? I feel like we have this question a lot, and every time we say the exact same answers, and every time nothing changes.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why this program has been stable and climbing is Coach Kleiman has been able to keep a lot of continuity within the staff. And I think they finally found the right guy at receiver.
I hope so.
Someone's going to come after Connor Riley. He's going to get Scotty Hazelton at some point where offensive line coaches in the SEC are getting $1 million plus.
Right.
It's just going to happen.
I think that's the only fear. I don't want to say fear, but the only plausible scenario right now is somebody's getting a massive payday at one of 20 different schools. I don't think that there are, if they're going to make a lateral move or even like a coordinator move, you're looking at a handful of select schools that they would leave to go to. I think Colin Klein could go to any school in the country and be their offensive coordinator. I think that that's just a realistic possibility. If somebody wants Colin Klein bad enough, they can pay him to get him.
Well, did we not go through that though?
Yeah, but I still think that he will go wherever.
I don't think he's leaving except to be a head coach at this point. At this point,
I would agree that's the plan, but I want to put an asterisk next to Notre Dame. I think there were some budget things going on there that we don't fully appreciate, and they offered him the very most they could, which was more than he gets paid at K-State, but not the staggering number that you could see from other programs. Notre Dame's media contract is impacting its football program, and that's why I'm just shocked that they continue to say we're staying independent, because they're going to fall way behind the Big Ten.
But for a guy like Joe Klanderman or Connor Riley, it's going to take a top 20 school or type of job that can pay. It'll be more money for either the same work or a promotion.
And what are the odds? And let's just be real here. What are the odds that actually happens? I don't care if K-State wins the Big 12 and goes to a college football playoff. K-State will always be looked down upon by the SEC and by the Big Ten, no matter what happens. So what are the odds of that actually happening? I know we can sit here and talk about Garrett Riley going to Clemson as an offensive coordinator, but I think those situations are completely different, right? He is the lineage of one of the best coaches in the sport, and he's a younger coach. I just can't see a Garrett Riley type of thing happening with a Colin Klein. I just can't.
That's fine. That's my point, is that
that's what I would take.
Right. That's what it would take for, people to leave, unless a position, underperforms like we saw 2 years ago, getting rid of Mess, getting rid of Jason Ray. I think that Chris Kleiman is very open to making changes on his staff when he needs to make changes. But also, I think that if you're doing well, you're having success here, there's a lot of coaches that I don't really see leaving, like Buddy, Tui, if Van Malone gets a head coaching opportunity, I think he leaves. But, I think that everyone is pretty happy here, and it's going to take, like I've said, a top 20 job with top 20 type of pay.
If Colin Klein leaves, then that opens the door for Connor Riley to be your offensive coordinator.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
I think if Colin Klein leaves, and you're keeping Connor Riley. If Connor Riley leaves and you lose Colin Klein, then that's just bad luck. But I can't see both of those things happening. I just can't.
Yeah.
Well, Colin Klein's in the picture in the back of Riley's head, saying, hey, am I hearing that he might leave? Well, then maybe I will stick around and see if I can be the coordinator for 5 years from now, 3 years from now. But in your defense, Zach, I will say at least Klein entertained the Notre Dame stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm with Cole. I don't think he'll leave unless it's for a head coaching position. That's just me.
Do you think if Colin Klein did ever leave, do you think, well, I guess this didn't make sense. If Joe Klanderman left, do you think they would try, do you think Chris Klieman would try getting Matt Ince to be his defensive coordinator?
That's interesting.
I've always wondered about that. If there was ever an opening, I screwed up the side of the ball he was on. He was the defensive coordinator. But would Matt Ince make the jump up to D1?
It certainly would be a pay increase.
Absolutely.
Which is just weird to think about.
The head coach,
Yeah, I mean, a head coach at one of the elite programs at that level would be paid significantly more as a coordinator. Oh, yes, I do, by the way. And I think they'd also go knock on Scotty Hazelton's door again. Because I think there's a sense of regret. That was a more money move. That wasn't necessarily more happiness move. That's it for the first half. I totally was waiting for Cole to ask another question. Then Cole didn't ask a question. So then I realized, that was the last question. Cole's not going to ask a question. So now we're going to just start these ads right now.
GoPowerCat.com's PowerCat podcast continues after this short break.
Hey, Mel, Bri here. Gotta work from home today because the whole family caught a nasty.
Daddy!
Hey, Mikey, if you're gonna puke, find the popcorn bowl! But my availability is 110%. Coincidentally, so is my fever. Kidding. Mel, I'm so cold but hot. But I'm gonna get you that budget just as soon as... Mikey, popcorn bowl!
Press 1 to use Instacart and get your family sick day essentials delivered in as fast as 30 minutes. Press 2 to keep working. Do not press 2. Just use Instacart, Brian.
Welcome back to the PowerCat podcast. Now, let's return to the GPC studios.
Welcome back to the PowerCat Questions podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Oh, my gosh. I just haven't been up there. I need to go buy some Pacifico in bottles where it belongs.
That's a hot take.
Not in cans or on tap?
On tap's okay. Cans don't work for Pacifico. I don't know why.
Pacifico tastes good on tap when somebody's pouring it for you. Right?
It tastes delicious. Well, mostly because you put your thumb in it every time you pour me a beer. I don't quite understand why you do that, but it does add a little salt.
It does.
Enough of the setup.
It's for flavoring.
These are the questions that you've asked us at Wabash Station. Everyone gets to listen, but you got to be a member at Go PowerCat, one of our VIPs, to ask the questions. And now Cole's going to read more of those.
First question of the second half comes from KSU Cat 80. Can Cooper Beebe realistically enter the Ring of Honor? I know where
absolutely.
they're getting, and do you know where this is coming from? He had a interview with Pro Football Focus. They did an exclusive interview with him, and he said part of the reason he came back was A, so he could graduate, and B, because he wants to be in the Ring of Honor. And I don't believe that there's been anybody who hasn't graduated who's in the Ring of Honor. Is that correct?
It used to be a guideline for Coach Snyder, and then there used to be some guidelines about All-American status, which they dropped. I mean, he rightfully added transformational figure in the program. Like a guy like Kevin Lockett wasn't able to be in the Ring of Honor because there was really good receivers this season, and he was hugely impactful in K-State football, but he was third-team All-American. Now, that shouldn't disqualify you because your position was loaded around the country that year. So, look, I think it's time to start getting some of those big guys up there. Nick Leckie belongs up there, and I certainly think that it's another first-team All-Big 12 season, first-round pick. We'll see Cooper Beebe up there eventually.
Did you see what Cooper said about Kansas in that article?
Yes, that was amazing.
No.
So the KU coaches were basically told Cooper that they were about to get fired.
Oh,
don't
yes,
come
it is
here.
that.
He's told us that story before.
Yeah, that's so
in
funny.
one of the
I've heard that.
medias.
Did he say that?
Yeah, he did. I
On the
think it might
record,
have been.
I thought that was always off the record, but maybe not.
Apparently it is.
He quoted in this article, he said, one of the reasons I came back was to try to make Kansas State's Ring of Honor. The top players that played at Kansas State are in there like Jordy Nelson, Darren Sproles, and Colin Klein. That's where I want to see myself. If I'm fortunate to be there, I'll have that forever. I think I've put myself in a great position to be considered, but one more year of college might put me over the edge. I look at that wall and say, why not me?
I'm not going to lie. It's kind of strange hearing somebody say that that's a goal. And I don't mean to discount the goal. I'm just saying it's a very lofty goal. He's already, reached the accolades of meeting the criteria other than, not being 5 years out of school. But it really is such a high honor in K-State football history to be up on that wall.
People that watch football and people that know football, you don't even have to know that much about football to watch Cooper Beebe and be like, this guy's different. Like every time I watch him play or even practice, you can just tell that he just has an it factor that nobody else on that offensive line has, and that's not a knock on anybody else. But Cooper Beebe he's just different. Like he's just different, and he's a special talent that if he played any other position, fans would be clamoring about him being one of the top 3 players ever at his position at K-State. Yeah. Like he is that good. And so, yes, he will be in the Ring of Honor immediately. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. And I can't wait to see it because he is an outstanding kid, and he's an amazing, amazing football player.
All right. This wasn't a question, but Fitz, who are the next 4 people that should be in the Ring of Honor?
Tim Fitzgerald.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He was a really underrated performer.
Put Kellis in there at quarterback?
Yeah. I haven't looked at it, but Nick Lucky belongs up there. They need to go back and get some of the old guys. Like basketball, we keep living in the moment instead of honoring the guys that belong there that were All-Americans long before K-State football was great.
I was going to make the argument you put Deuce and Felix and maybe even Cooper if it's, if they do it 6 years from now immediately. And then you add in maybe 2 or 3 other guys.
Yeah, we got a lot of guys we got to get up there.
Deuce is worthy to go in. Is Felix worthy to be on that based off of statistics alone?
That's why you wait 5 years. That is a perfect example of why you wait. You need time to sort it out. And I mean, we can go to the basketball side with retirement of jerseys, not numbers, jerseys, and the argument about Barry Brown and Dean Wade, and how will they stack up in the grand scheme of things? Marquise Noel's an interesting person. Keontae's an interesting person. I don't think Keontae will be up there, but
Tang said they should be, both of them.
I agree. But that, again, you need to let the test of time sort it out. And maybe, at some point we'll realize, Marquise was transitional. Like he totally changed the program more than Keontae. So, yeah, I'm all for when it's obvious. Michael Beasley should be up there. I don't care if he only played 1 season. He's the greatest college basketball player I've ever seen. He was better than the guys that are now in the NBA that have been there a long time and in the Big 12 at the same time. So I think K-State needs to put forth a real effort in basketball, football, to go back and make sure everyone that needs to be honored has been honored, and quit doing it piecemeal, particularly with guys that are alive and aging. Get them up there when they can be there.
It is. A lot of it's about the foundation that you lay, right? And to go back to Cooper, what if he didn't have to be an All-American or anything like that, but he starts for 2 years, 3 years, and is a solid contributor to a Big 12 championship team. And when you think of the last name Beebe, you don't just think of Cooper. And that whole, I know the family's got a really good set of DNA in them. But yeah, it's not about what you do when you're here, but it's obviously the legacy that you leave and moving forward how your respective program plays.
Yep, agreed. Next question comes from Power Cat Ryan. Which current football players would you place in the top 10 at their position all time at K-State? Do Will Howard, Cooper Beebe, and Ben Sinnott make the list?
Beebe, yes.
Cooper Beebe.
Beebe, 100%. 100%.
Senate might, because there's been so few tight ends. I mean,
you'd have to go back.
Got the ball for scores.
Yeah. I mean, there was, some guys pre-Snyder that stood out. Russ Campbell comes to mind. And early years of Snyder, he threw to the tight end. So, you see some other guys.
Travis Stanhill's top 10.
Probably. But before that, there was even some great ones. So, I don't know. It's hard to say on Will. I think he's very close to top 10, but they've had some great quarterbacks.
If you just have to, when you do this, I feel like you have to just say from Bill Snyder, like that has to be your starting point. And I know that's maybe not maybe that's disrespectful to the people that came before Bill Snyder, but kind of like we talked about on Fighting Never Fighting with Mark Porter. It's like, there are two distinctive timelines in K-State football history. You have pre-Bill Snyder and post-Bill Snyder. It's like
I agree with
BBS
that.
and ABS.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Before Bill Snyder.
Okay.
I get it.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's the historian over here. Come on.
Lynn Dickey and Steve Grogan certainly are in the top 10. I mean, they not only were great college quarterbacks, but they were great NFL quarterbacks. You just start then with Chad May. We're going to get going here.
Michael Bishop.
Michael.
Al. Or L, sorry. Not Al. I'm thinking of...
Don't call me Al.
Sal.
Yeah.
Sal.
Did he play quarterback?
Jonathan Beasley, who's still underappreciated. But I think, he didn't win a Big 12 title, and that's L's big thing, but I think he was a better quarterback than L. Roberson.
Josh Freeman.
Again, not a Snyder guy at all. Never played for Snyder. I'd love to have seen it.
Are we going to throw Jake Waters into that mix?
I knew Zach would. If you didn't say that, Zach would have mentioned it.
I'd probably put Will above Jake Waters at this point.
Yeah.
But I think you've only seen 1 year from Will Howard. A lot of this depends upon how he performs this year.
I would agree with that.
And it was half a year, really, that he was successful.
Played in 8 games, I
We
believe.
didn't mention that guy that's the offense coordinator,
Oh, yeah, that's kind of important.
Colin Klein.
Who?
It's really impressive the number of great college quarterbacks Kansas State has had. This is not translated to the NFL, but as I often point out, they're not in charge of their job. Isn't to make NFL players; it's to win college football games. And I see programs around the country that are really good at putting guys in the NFL that don't win that much. Texas, and there's a handful of programs that get elite players and also win. Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State.
Is Daniel Green in the top 15 of middle linebackers? This is a school that's had very good middle linebackers. I don't know if Daniel Green is in the top 10, but I think he's in the top 15. And I could make an argument that he could be in the top 10. He is very underappreciated, especially if he has the year this year that I think a lot of people think he's going to have. A consistent starter for 5 years. It is hard to deny that.
Yeah.
It is hard to deny that.
His injury season last year, I think, has led people to sleep on him. They don't realize how beaten up he was. And if he's healthy this year, I'll say it. He could be flirting with Ring of Honor type things if he has the kind of season he's capable of in 2023.
He is going to be a first team All Big 12, and he will fight for Defensive Player of the Year.
Right.
He is not going to get any votes or anything in the preseason, but he is going to have an outstanding season.
I know. And because of the 5 years, the longevity of his career, his stats will pop out. Again, you'll get to this 5 years down the road and look at that and go, wow, look what he amassed during his career, ending as a top player in the country. So he's got a great range of where he could end up in the history of Kansas State football. He could be seen way up there as one of the elite linebackers, or he could just kind of fall back into the crowd. Mm-hmm. He's got to have a big year.
Those 4 would be probably the only ones that would be worth discussing about a top 10 of their position, right?
Probably. When you think about history of college football programs, especially now 120, 140 years, since the beginning of a lot of programs, at any given time, you probably do have a handful of guys on the team that are just mathematically going to be top 10. Mm-hmm. So, as time goes on, it'll definitely decrease, but kind of an interesting thing to think about that there probably are guys on the team that are top 10.
Good question, Ryan. Next question comes from Call Me T22. What does the latest news out of the Big Ten mean for the Big 12? How can Brett Yormark capitalize?
I don't know if there's a way for the Big 12 to capitalize on this.
Making sure the ink is dry on everything.
Would you like to elaborate some backstory for some of us sitting at the table who don't know?
Well, Kevin Warren, the outgoing or done, I don't even know what his status is now with the Big Ten, their commissioner, made some promises during the negotiating. We all thought, wow, they took care of this awfully quickly. They got CBS for this and ESPN, or whatever it is. They signed 3 major entities. Well, apparently he made promises to NBC that are impossible to deliver. He promised him a championship game that was not within his realm of power to award. And he's also promised him night games that programs are saying, no, we're up north. We're not playing night games in November, and I understand that. I mean, at some point, whether it's day games in the south or night games in the north, player safety has to be a concern. It's too hot. It's too cold. This isn't professional sports where the guys are paid to do it and they've got all the elite medical staff there. This is college sports. They have very good medical staffs, but I just think you got to be more careful about this. So basically they announced their media deal without the signatures. I mean, even K-State with the Chris Kleiman contract, we all knew it was coming. They didn't announce that until the signatures were on it, and everything had been vetted by attorneys, and this is incredible. But this could water down this deal. NBC could get out of some of what, if they're not going to get that championship game, I think they have every right to retract. Now, where it becomes interesting is, since it's not signed, does the Big Ten say, hold on, we promised you things that you can't deliver. We can't deliver. So do you want to still do this contract? What's it worth to you? And the second they say, well, 75% of what we offered, the contract's not signed, I can see them going, okay, we're going back to the market then. That's where it could impact everyone, because now, we talk about it from the Big 12 perspective, but what if NBC says, screw you, you just totally lied to us. We're going to just take everything for the Pac-12. We're going to give them a deal. So that's where there could be some fallout from this. Or that doesn't happen. And let's be honest, nobody's eager to jump in bed at the Pac-12. It's teetering on the brink. And despite the ravings of some people on Twitter, it just doesn't draw the audiences for viewership that other conferences do. So maybe this comes into this. People are like, well, what if the Big 12 adds 4 more teams? Is it going to water down the contract? Well, no. I mean, ESPN is willing to up their bid if they get more games out of quality, proven programs. But at some point, you're going to have so much more inventory. You're going to have another level of your inventory to sell. And does that bring NBC into the possibility of the Big 12 in the future? I mean, if the Big 12 goes to 16 or even 20 teams in the life of this contract, that could very possibly bring in another entity to broadcast with. I mean, it's about inventory. It's about your number of teams, your number of games. It's not just a flat amount to a conference. It's all calculated in. NBC's probably really pissed right now. I mean, they were literally lied to in a negotiation and promised things that can't be delivered. That literally, he promised them something that belonged to someone else. It's crazy.
I feel like if the Big Ten has to go back to the drawing board on negotiations, I don't think they get anywhere close to the number that they were expecting. Agreed. I think the market has just changed for college sports. Just the economy too. I don't think that, if they make you go back and renegotiate, at this point, I don't know what you want to do. You might just want to wait until closer till the end of the current deal to get a new deal.
Just be happy that Brett Yormark is in charge of your conference.
Right.
like, that's what it comes down to. Like, I love when we have these questions about all these other conferences falling apart, and the Big 12 is exploring new ideas. It's expanding. It's being out in front of everything. And maybe we're wrong. Maybe we just don't hear about the bad things that are going on, but I just have a hard time believing that there's anything bad happening because he just is on top of everything. And it's just so refreshing. It really is.
If you're looking for a conference commissioner, there's now 2 quick formulas. You go look for someone who's got experience in that space. Maybe it was associate commissioner somewhere or whatever. It's been an AD like Bob Bowlesby was. Or now people are looking outside the industry and saying, okay, what can this person bring in? The Pac-12 has now done that back-to-back outside the industry and chose poorly. You can blame your commissioners all you want, but they didn't just land in your lap when you had no choice. You literally selected these people to be in charge. So at the end of the day, that just comes right back to you. You're incompetent. And I think it's very clear that the leadership of the Pac-12 is just utterly incompetent. These chancellors and presidents have no clue about which they're talking. They're living in some alter universe. I literally tweeted that. I feel like talking to some of these fans of the Pac-12, they're from a different dimension. None of this adds up to the realities of college football and the realities of what the Pac-12 is in that frame. This Big Ten mess is going to play out. I think it was Jamie Pollard at Iowa State who just had a story someone wrote. I guess he's on equivalent of their Catbacker tour or whatever. And he goes, it's so strange. There's 5 major conferences. Autonomous 5 is what they want to call it, which is more, more palatable if you're not one of them. And right now, the SEC and the Big 12 are the stable ones. Mm-hmm. We have literally never been in this position. He's been there almost 20 years. Never before has he been in this position that the Big 12 is the stable conference. And he pointed out what I think a lot of us feel. Shedding Texas in particular, Oklahoma is a different story, has brought a sense of peace, calm, and unity to this conference, the likes of which they've literally never seen. Because from day one, Texas was strong-arming the Oklahoma schools, the Texas schools, and coerced Colorado into voting their way on everything. And
they were the bullies.
They were the bullies. They literally are. This might be another way for the Big 12 to find some more income. And let me just say, if there's one commissioner out there right now that can translate it into actual dollars for his member institutions, he's in charge of the Big 12.
Mm-hmm. On that same note, the last question of the podcast comes from Woody Shade Dog. Is there a legitimate chance UNLV or San Diego State could be added to the Big 12 instead of, Utah or Arizona State?
Yeah. In fact, I almost sense that the list right now is Arizona, Colorado, which our buddy Barry Trammell, out of nowhere, who hasn't really been known for reporting a lot on conference expansion, reported that Colorado's ready to go, right? That might be June 1. It's coming up. And then San Diego State is the third, because I think the Big 12 hasn't just taken non-P5 schools. They've found the ones with the incredible growth potential that can do things that, you bring on. Well, just look at Utah. Look at Utah as a perfect example, and TCU. And granted, both of them had good football programs, particularly TCU before they were Power 5. But given the opportunity, TCU plays for a national championship. Utah thinks they won 7 national championships. But there has been amazing progress. San Diego State might be the next one. They want to be in the Pac-12. I don't blame them. That's their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. But if that's not available, I think they would jump at the chance. The UNLV play, I think that's going away simply because of the ACC being in flux. UNLV has a legitimate shot if they want to add more than 3 schools in the West. I know a lot of Utah fans want to say what's going on Twitter isn't reflective. Yes, it is. I mean, I had a national writer slide into my DMs and goes, "You having fun with Utah fans? They're the most toxic group of people I've ever come across in all my years of doing this." Guys, I threw this anecdote on Twitter. I talked to an assistant commissioner at Big 12 who brought it up. How about those Utah fans? I'm like, oh, they're a handful. And he goes, yeah, believe me, we're aware of the problems. It goes back to what I just said about Jamie Pollard. We've never seen this kind of unity. And, in our conference, do you really want to bring in someone who openly says, we don't want to be here? We'd prefer to be somewhere else. And look, all of us, every school in the Big 12 would take an SEC offer. Every one of them. I mean, the money's just too much. But when you literally have a school saying, well, we really want to be in the Big 10, we'll come hang out with you for a while. But when we get an offer, no, you don't even bring them in. You don't want that instability right now.
So why not Arizona State?
Arizona State's been pretty standoffish. I think at the end of the day, it will be Arizona State as the third school.
And I think that, honestly, it would make a lot of sense if you had Arizona and Arizona State come together. Yeah, I get that point, but I think it opens up so many avenues that you can even do in the state of Arizona. Like, there's so many things that you can do if you get both of those schools.
Just go back to Brett Yormark's Mexico play.
Yeah. I mean,
Adding Arizona State gets a hockey school in the Big 12.
Yes, with a really nice arena.
That plays NHL games for not a good reason.
This is your random anecdote because this is going on right now, but the SEC wants to move their baseball championships, which is a major thing for that conference. That is a major thing for that conference.
In a lot of schools, it's about basketball in importance.
Right. They want to move their baseball championships to an indoor stadium. Well, somebody brought up the idea of going to Arlington, which they can't do right now because the Big 12 is there. Well, what happens if you get the Arizona schools is then all of a sudden you can use the Arizona Diamondbacks for the Big 12, and you have the same.
So you're saying that the Big 12 should lay down to the SEC?
No, I'm saying that if you have it just opens up other avenues. And right. I think you're giving Texas the middle finger by saying, okay, you guys want this place? That's fine. We'll just move right next door with our schools that are in the backyard there too.
I'll be blunt. If I could pick on three more schools to add, it'd be Arizona, Arizona State, and San Diego State. I think that's a good way to balance out this conference. But Colorado's ready to come. I'm now convinced Colorado hired Deion to join the Big 12.
I thought that immediately.
They knew their lack of commitment to college football was going to cost them a seat at the table.
Does it not make it more interesting, though? Like, if they would have just had the same old coach and Colorado wants to join the Big 12,
I don't think they were getting
in. No, but it makes it more interesting. I want to see them in the Big 12 because I want to see how that goes. It's like a house fire. You don't know. You just can't look away.
Right.
Like I don't know.
You know what's going to happen. It's burning down.
It's gonna be epic.
They're either going to be really good or it's not going to work. There's no in between there.
Yep, I agree. This is all interesting. There's so much now. There's so much in flux. ACC's in play. They're one lawsuit away, I think, from breaking up, and I think it's coming. There's just not enough money in their contract to appease the programs that feel like they need more money. You can give them a little bit more, but it's not going to add up to anything substantial. They still won't be making what the Big 12 does, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. Well, that's it for this edition of the PowerCat Questions podcast. Now the big question facing the crew here as we sign off is, where are we eating lunch? There's so many good choices. Some of them are sponsors, and one of them's a ranch.
Thank you for listening to the PowerCat podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. PowerCat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowerCat.com.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
If you want to win your fantasy football league, it starts right now. The offseason is the best time to get ahead of the competition. We'll help you win your league on the Fantasy Football Today podcast, part of CBS Sports Podcast Network. Fantasy Football Today has 3 episodes every week following the latest news, giving you early rankings, early sleepers, breakouts, and busts. So if you're a dedicated fantasy football manager, check out the most dedicated podcast, Fantasy Football Today. Download and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere podcasts are found.